Train your mind to win every challenge. Become impossible to defeat. Published by the Growth Mind Audiobook. Introduction. Every human being carries two lives. The first is the life that circumstances try to write, the unexpected failures, the criticism, the uncertainty, the moments when everything seems to move in the wrong direction. The second is the life written by the mind, the quiet decisions, invisible habits, daily thoughts, and repeated actions that determine whether those circumstances become a prison or a path forward. The difference between these two lives is where every challenge is truly won. Most people spend years trying to control the outside world. They search for better opportunities, better timing, better conditions, or better luck. Yet history repeatedly shows that the people who endure, lead, innovate, and rise are rarely the ones with the easiest path. They are the ones who built an inner world that refused to collapse when the outer world became unpredictable. This audiobook begins with a simple belief. The mind is not fixed, it is trained. It is shaped by what you repeatedly notice, what you repeatedly believe, and above all, what you repeatedly do. Every decision strengthens a pattern. Every habit rewires a response. Every challenge either expands your capacity or exposes the parts of your thinking that still need to grow. That means your greatest opponent is not failure. It is unconscious thinking. It is reacting instead of choosing. It is allowing fear to make decisions that should belong to courage. It is allowing temporary emotions to shape permanent outcomes. Over the next 14 chapters, you will not be asked to chase motivation or depend on endless positivity. Instead, you will learn how to construct a stronger mental foundation, one built on disciplined thinking, emotional stability, deliberate action, and intelligent adaptation. Rather than fighting every obstacle, you will learn how to use obstacles as training. Rather than avoiding pressure, you will learn how to perform inside it. Rather than hoping for confidence, you will build it through consistent action until it becomes part of who you are. This is not about becoming fearless. Fear has always been part of the human experience, and it always will be. The goal is something far greater, to become the kind of person whose principles are stronger than fear, whose discipline is stronger than doubt, and whose vision is stronger than temporary discomfort. Every challenge asks the same silent question: will you react or will you rise? Your answer is never found in a single moment. It is found in the mind you build every single day. So leave behind the belief that life becomes easier for successful people. It does not. The challenges simply become different. What changes is the person facing them. A trained mind does not wait for certainty before taking action. It creates clarity through action. It does not expect the road to be smooth. It learns to move forward regardless of the terrain. This audiobook is an invitation to begin that transformation, not by becoming someone else, but by uncovering the strength that has been hidden beneath distraction, hesitation, and self-imposed limits. Chapter by chapter, you will develop a way of thinking that is calmer under pressure, clearer in uncertainty, stronger after setbacks, and wiser with every decision. Because the people who become impossible to defeat are not the people who never fall. They are the people who train their minds so well that every fall becomes the beginning of a stronger rise. Chapter 1. Build your inner command center. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is relentless, the rain is blinding, and every direction looks uncertain. Most people believe that surviving the storm depends on making the weather calmer. They spend their energy wishing circumstances were different, hoping obstacles would disappear or that someone else would make the path easier. But the people who consistently overcome life's greatest challenges understand a different truth. You cannot command the storm, but you can command yourself. This is where every meaningful transformation begins. Your mind is not simply a place where thoughts appear. It is the command center from which every decision, emotion, habit, and action is directed. Whether you realize it or not, it is constantly interpreting events, assigning meaning to experiences, and deciding how you respond. If this command center is ruled by fear, distraction, and impulse, even small challenges feel overwhelming. If it is guided by clarity, discipline, and intention, even difficult situations become manageable. The quality of your life is closely connected to the quality of the instructions your mind gives itself every day. Most people never consciously design those instructions. They inherit them. They absorb them from childhood experiences, repeated failures, social expectations, and the opinions of others. Over time, these invisible messages become internal rules. I am not ready. I always struggle. I am not good enough. This is just who I am. The dangerous part is not that these thoughts exist. The dangerous part is that they often go unquestioned. A thought repeated often enough begins to sound like truth, even when it is nothing more than an old conclusion drawn from a temporary experience. Your first responsibility is not to believe every thought that enters your mind. Your first responsibility is to examine it. Ask yourself a different question whenever doubt appears. Is this thought helping me move forward, or is it keeping me exactly where I have always been? This single habit changes everything because it shifts you from being controlled by your thinking to becoming the observer of your thinking. The moment you begin observing your thoughts, instead of automatically obeying them, you reclaim your authority. Authority over your own mind is one of the greatest forms of freedom a person can achieve. Consider two people facing the exact same challenge. Both lose an important opportunity. One immediately concludes that failure defines them. They replay the disappointment until it becomes part of their identity. The other asks a different question. What can this experience teach me that success never could? The event is identical, but the interpretation creates two completely different futures. Your circumstances influence you, but your interpretation directs you. This is why mental strength is less about controlling the world and more about controlling meaning. Every experience arrives without permanent labels. It is your mind that decides whether an obstacle becomes evidence of weakness or an invitation to develop greater capability. Building your inner command center requires replacing automatic reactions with deliberate choices. Instead of reacting to criticism, become curious. Instead of reacting to uncertainty, become prepared. Instead of reacting to fear, become intentional. These shifts may appear small, yet they quietly reshape the direction of your life. Every deliberate response strengthens the part of the mind responsible for judgment, patience, and long-term thinking. Every impulsive reaction strengthens habits that keep you trapped in emotional cycles. The mind develops according to what it practices most. If you repeatedly practice frustration, frustration becomes familiar. If you repeatedly practice discipline, discipline becomes natural. If you repeatedly practice courage, courage slowly becomes part of your identity. You are always training your mind, whether you recognize it or not. The only question is whether you are training it by design or by default. This realization changes how you approach every day. Ordinary moments become opportunities for mental training. Waking up when the alarm rings instead of negotiating with yourself strengthens commitment. Finishing a difficult task instead of avoiding it strengthens resilience. Listening carefully during disagreement instead of reacting emotionally strengthens self-control. Keeping promises to yourself strengthens trust in your own character. None of these victories will make headlines. Yet together they construct something far more valuable than public recognition, They build a mind that becomes increasingly dependable under pressure. The strongest people are rarely those who never experience fear, uncertainty, or failure. They are the people who refuse to surrender leadership of their own minds to those experiences. They understand that emotions provide information, but they do not deserve complete authority. Thoughts deserve examination before they deserve belief. Circumstances deserve a response, not blind reaction. This is the foundation of your transformation. From this moment forward, stop treating your mind as a place where random thoughts happen. Begin treating it as the command center of your life, a place where clarity is cultivated, discipline is strengthened, and every decision is guided by purpose instead of impulse. Because the greatest victory you will ever achieve is not controlling everything around you. It is becoming the person who remains in command, no matter what is happening around you. Chapter 2. Break the invisible mental limits. Every prison has walls, but not every wall is made of stone. Some of the strongest barriers in life cannot be seen, touched, or measured. They exist quietly inside the mind, shaping choices before actions are even taken. They whisper what is possible, what is dangerous, what is realistic, and what is impossible. Over time, these invisible boundaries become so familiar that they no longer feel like limitations. They simply feel like reality. This is where countless dreams quietly disappear, not because people lack ability, but because they mistake old beliefs for permanent truths. Think about the way a path forms through a forest. The more people walk the same route, the clearer it becomes. Eventually, it feels like the only way forward, even though countless other directions remain unexplored. The human mind works in much the same way. Every repeated thought creates a familiar pathway. Every repeated reaction reinforces that pathway until it becomes the default response. The remarkable part is that the mind does not carefully distinguish between useful beliefs and limiting ones. It strengthens whatever is practiced most often. If you constantly tell yourself that change is difficult, your mind begins searching for evidence to support that conclusion. If you repeatedly assume that failure is proof of inadequacy, every setback becomes another piece of confirmation. Gradually, these beliefs become invisible filters through which every experience is interpreted. The challenge is that invisible limits rarely announce themselves. They do not say, "I am holding you back." Instead, they disguise themselves as common sense. "You should play it safe. This probably isn't for someone like you. People like you don't succeed at this. You've already tried before." These thoughts often sound reasonable because they are built from past experiences, but the past is information, not destiny. What happened yesterday explains where you have been. It does not decide where you are capable of going. The first step toward freedom is recognizing that every belief deserves examination. Instead of asking, "Is this thought true?" ask a more useful question. Is this thought helping me build the future I want? That single question shifts your attention away from defending your limitations and toward designing your possibilities. The mind is constantly collecting evidence for whatever it already believes. If you believe you are incapable, you will notice every mistake while overlooking every improvement. If you believe growth is possible, you will notice progress that once seemed invisible. This is not about pretending difficulties do not exist. It is about refusing to let one experience define your entire identity. Imagine learning to ride a bicycle. Falling is not evidence that you are incapable of balance. It is evidence that you are learning balance. Yet many people approach life differently. One failed business convinces them they are not entrepreneurs. One rejection convinces them they are unworthy. One mistake convinces them they are not intelligent enough. Temporary outcomes become permanent labels. That is one of the mind's greatest illusions. Your identity should never be built on isolated moments. It should be built on the direction you are choosing every day. Growth begins when you stop describing yourself by your past and start defining yourself by your commitment to improve. This requires replacing fixed conclusions with living questions. Instead of saying, "I'm not confident," ask, "What would a confident person practice today?" Instead of saying, "I'm bad at difficult conversations," ask, "How can I become better with each conversation?" Instead of saying, "I always quit," ask, "What small promise can I keep today?" Questions open doors that conclusions permanently close. Every meaningful transformation starts with curiosity. Curiosity weakens fear because it shifts attention away from protecting your current identity and toward discovering your future potential. There is another invisible limit that quietly controls many lives: the belief that comfort equals safety. The truth is more complicated. Comfort often protects you from temporary discomfort, but it can also protect you from meaningful growth. Every new skill, every stronger habit, every important achievement begins with unfamiliarity. At first, progress feels awkward because the brain prefers what is familiar, even when what is familiar no longer serves you. That is why growth often feels uncomfortable before it feels rewarding. The discomfort is not a warning that you are failing. It is evidence that your mind is adapting to something new. Each time you choose learning over certainty, action over hesitation, or courage over convenience, you expand the boundaries of what your mind considers possible. The limits that once seemed permanent begin to dissolve, not through dramatic breakthroughs, but through repeated acts of intentional growth. Do not wait until you feel completely ready. Read the book before you think you understand everything. Speak up before your confidence feels perfect. Begin the project before every answer is clear. Progress belongs to those who are willing to move while still learning. Every action sends a message to your mind. When you avoid challenges, you teach yourself that fear deserves authority. When you face challenges with thoughtful action, you teach yourself that growth deserves trust. Over time, these lessons reshape your identity. The person you become is not determined by the limits you inherited. It is determined by the limits you choose to challenge. So stop measuring your future by the boundaries of your past. Question what has always seemed unquestionable. Replace automatic assumptions with deliberate thinking. Treat every obstacle as an invitation to expand your capacity rather than defend your comfort. Because the greatest limits in life are rarely built by the world around you. They are built by the stories you continue to tell yourself. The moment you rewrite those stories, you begin rewriting your future. Chapter 3. Train your mind to stay calm under pressure. Pressure has a remarkable way of revealing what ordinary days keep hidden. When life is predictable, almost anyone can appear confident. It is easy to stay patient when nothing goes wrong. It is easy to remain optimistic when every plan succeeds. But the true character of the mind is revealed when expectations collapse, time runs short, emotions rise, and uncertainty takes control. In those moments, pressure does not create your mindset, it exposes it. Many people see pressure as an enemy to escape. They believe that a peaceful life is one without difficult conversations, demanding responsibilities, unexpected setbacks, or high expectations. Yet the people who accomplish extraordinary things do not wait for pressure to disappear. They prepare themselves to think clearly while it is present. That is a profound difference. Pressure is not proof that something is wrong. More often, it is proof that something important is happening. An athlete feels pressure before a championship. A surgeon experiences pressure before a complex operation. An entrepreneur feels pressure before launching a new venture. A parent experiences pressure while making decisions that shape a child's future. The presence of pressure does not signal weakness, it signals responsibility. The question is not whether pressure will arrive. The question is who you become when it does. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that calmness is a personality trait. They assume some individuals are naturally composed while others are destined to panic. In reality, calmness is less about personality and more about preparation. The mind responds according to what it has practiced. If your habit is to react immediately to every inconvenience, your mind learns that every challenge deserves urgency. Small frustrations begin to feel enormous because you have trained yourself to respond emotionally before thinking clearly. Imagine someone cutting in front of you in traffic. The event lasts only a few seconds, but your reaction may linger for hours. Another person experiences the same situation, notices it, accepts that it cannot be changed, and continues driving without carrying the frustration any further. The difference is not the event, the difference is mental discipline. A trained mind understands that not every thought deserves attention, and not every emotion deserves expression. This begins with creating space between what happens and how you respond. That space may last only a few seconds, but it is where your greatest power lives. Instead of reacting instantly, pause, take a slow breath, observe your thoughts without obeying them. Ask yourself, what response will improve this situation instead of making it worse? These simple actions interrupt automatic patterns and allow your wiser judgment to take the lead. Most emotional mistakes happen because people confuse urgency with importance. They believe every uncomfortable feeling requires immediate action. Anger demands a response. Fear demands retreat. Anxiety demands certainty. But emotions are messengers, not commanders. They provide information about your internal experience, yet they do not always provide accurate instructions for what you should do next. Learning this distinction changes everything. Imagine standing in front of a mountain trail. At the beginning, the climb looks exhausting. Your body may already anticipate discomfort before you have taken a single step. If you trust only your immediate feelings, you may turn back before discovering the incredible view waiting beyond the climb. Life works the same way. The first emotional response is rarely the final truth. Patience gives wisdom enough time to arrive. There is another reason pressure overwhelms so many people. They attempt to solve every possible problem at once. The mind becomes overloaded because it races into imagined futures that have not happened yet. What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if everything goes wrong? These questions multiply until the real challenge disappears beneath a mountain of imagined disasters. A disciplined mind returns its attention to one simple question. What is the next useful step? Not the entire journey, not every possible outcome, only the next step. Progress has always been built this way. One conversation, one decision, one action, one improvement at a time. The future becomes far less intimidating when it is broken into manageable moments. Pressure loses much of its power when you stop trying to carry tomorrow while living today. There is a quiet confidence that develops when you repeatedly face uncomfortable situations without running from them. The first difficult conversation feels intimidating, the 10th feels manageable, the 100th becomes part of who you are. Confidence is not created by avoiding pressure. It is created by surviving it often enough that your mind stops treating it as danger. Every challenge becomes evidence that you are more capable than you once believed. This is why resilience cannot be borrowed from someone else. It must be earned through experience. Every time you remain composed during conflict, you strengthen emotional stability. Every time you think before reacting, you strengthen judgment. Every time you continue moving despite uncertainty, you strengthen courage. These invisible victories accumulate until calmness becomes your default rather than your exception. Remember that storms eventually pass, but the person you become while walking through them remains. Do not measure yourself by how comfortable life feels. Measure yourself by how clearly you can think when comfort disappears. Because the strongest minds are not built in moments of ease. They are forged in moments of pressure, refined through deliberate choices, and strengthened every time they refuse to surrender clarity to chaos. When you learn to stay calm while others lose control, you gain something more valuable than temporary confidence. You gain command of yourself. And the person who can command themselves can face almost any challenge the world places before them. Chapter 4. Turn every obstacle into strategic growth. Every obstacle carries two stories. The first story is the one your emotions tell you. It says the problem is unfair, the timing is wrong, and the challenge should not exist. It encourages frustration, self-pity, or the hope that someone else will remove the difficulty. The second story is quieter. It asks a different question. What is this experience trying to teach me that comfort never could? The direction of your life depends on which story you choose to believe. Many people imagine growth as a smooth climb towards success. In reality, meaningful progress is rarely a straight line. It twists through uncertainty, pauses at setbacks, and often demands a change of direction before it reveals a better path. Obstacles are not interruptions to growth, they are one of its primary architects. Think of a tree growing in an open field. A tree that never encounters strong winds may grow tall, but its roots often remain shallow. Another tree, forced to withstand seasons of storms, develops roots that spread deeper into the earth. The storms do not weaken the tree. They quietly prepare it to survive what weaker roots cannot. The human mind develops in much the same way. Challenges test more than your patience. They reveal the habits, assumptions, and weaknesses that remain hidden during easy seasons. An obstacle acts like a mirror. It reflects the areas where your thinking still needs refinement and the skills that are ready to be strengthened. This changes the purpose of adversity. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" begin asking, "What capacity is this challenge asking me to develop?" A difficult conversation may be developing emotional maturity. A failed project may be strengthening better judgment. A financial setback may be teaching wiser decision-making. A season of uncertainty may be building resilience that future success will require. The obstacle remains the same, but its meaning changes completely. One of the greatest advantages you can develop is the ability to separate the event from the lesson. Most people become trapped because they focus entirely on what they lost. Very few spend enough time discovering what they gained. Every experience leaves behind knowledge. Sometimes it teaches you what to pursue. Sometimes it teaches you what to avoid. Sometimes it reveals strengths you never knew existed because life had never required them before. Growth often arrives disguised as inconvenience. History is filled with people whose greatest breakthroughs were born from moments they originally wished had never happened. The setback forced them to rethink, adapt, improve, and discover possibilities they would never have explored if everything had gone according to plan. This does not mean every hardship is pleasant. Pain is real, disappointment is real, loss is real, but suffering becomes heavier when it is treated as meaningless. When you search for understanding instead of resentment, even painful experiences begin to serve a purpose. There is another habit that separates resilient people from everyone else. They refuse to confuse temporary obstacles with permanent conclusions. One failed attempt does not define your ability. One rejection does not define your value. One delay does not define your future. Too many people stop at the first closed door without realizing it may simply be directing them toward a better entrance. Progress belongs to those who remain flexible enough to adjust their approach without abandoning their purpose. Adaptation is one of the highest forms of strength. Rigid thinking breaks under pressure because it insists there is only one acceptable path. Adaptive thinking remains steady because it understands that while the destination may stay the same, the route can change many times. Every obstacle invites creativity. It asks you to think differently, act differently, and become someone more capable than the version of yourself that first encountered the challenge. This is how ordinary experiences become extraordinary teachers. Instead of resisting difficulty, learn to study it. Instead of asking when life will become easier, ask how you can become wiser. Every challenge contains information waiting to be discovered by those willing to look beyond the immediate discomfort. Remember, your greatest progress will rarely happen during moments when everything feels easy. It will happen when circumstances force you to grow beyond your previous limits. The obstacles standing before you today may become the very reason you possess greater confidence, deeper wisdom, and stronger character tomorrow. Do not measure obstacles by how much they slow your progress. Measure them by how much they expand your potential, because every challenge that demands a stronger version of you is also giving you the opportunity to become that person. And when you consistently choose growth over resistance, obstacles stop being barriers and begin becoming the foundation of an unshakable mind. Chapter 5. Strengthen your decisions before your results. Most people judge their lives by what they achieve. A wiser approach is to judge your life by how you make decisions. Results are visible, but decisions are the invisible force that creates them. Every success begins as a choice long before it becomes an outcome, and every setback can often be traced back to a decision that seemed small at the time. The future is rarely changed by one dramatic moment. More often, it is shaped by hundreds of ordinary decisions that quietly accumulate. A single choice to keep learning instead of giving up. A single choice to save instead of spend. A single choice to remain calm instead of reacting in anger. On their own, these moments appear insignificant. Over time, they become the architecture of an entirely different life. This is why strong minds focus less on chasing immediate rewards and more on improving the quality of every decision. Many people fall into the trap of believing that a good result always comes from a good decision. Life is not that simple. Sometimes you make the right choice and still face disappointment. Sometimes a careless decision appears to work in your favor. If you judge every decision only by its immediate outcome, you will eventually reward bad habits and abandon good ones. Imagine a farmer planting seeds. After one day, nothing appears to have changed. The soil looks exactly the same. If the farmer judged the value of planting by what was visible that afternoon, the field would never produce a harvest. Wise decisions often require patience before they reveal their value. The same principle applies to your life. Reading one chapter of a book may not transform your knowledge overnight. Exercising once may not transform your health. Choosing patience during one difficult conversation may not instantly repair a relationship, yet every thoughtful decision plants something beneath the surface. What cannot be seen today often becomes impossible to ignore months or years later. That is why mentally strong people learn to trust the process of intelligent decision-making instead of becoming obsessed with immediate results. Before making an important choice, pause and ask yourself a simple question. Will this decision still make sense a year from now? This question shifts your attention away from temporary emotions and toward long-term consequences. Impulse lives in the present. Wisdom considers the future. Pressure often encourages people to seek the fastest solution rather than the strongest one. They want immediate comfort, immediate certainty, and immediate success. But the quickest decision is not always the wisest. There is tremendous power in slowing your thinking before speeding up your actions. When emotions are intense, clarity becomes more valuable than speed. Another powerful habit is learning to separate facts from assumptions. The mind naturally fills gaps in information, especially during stressful situations. Someone fails to return your message, and you assume they are upset with you. A project becomes difficult, and you assume you are not capable enough. A plan changes unexpectedly, and you assume everything is falling apart. Notice what has happened. Nothing changed except the story your mind created. Strong decision-makers resist the temptation to act on assumptions. They seek evidence before reaching conclusions. They ask questions before making judgments. They understand that reality is often far different from the story fear creates. This habit protects you from unnecessary mistakes because many poor decisions begin with false interpretations rather than actual facts. Another principle is equally important. Never allow temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. Anger fades, fear changes, disappointment passes. But decisions made in those emotional moments can create consequences that last for years. This does not mean ignoring emotions. They are valuable signals that deserve attention, but they should become advisors, not rulers. Listen to them, understand them, then allow reason to guide your next step. As your decision-making improves, something remarkable begins to happen. Confidence grows naturally. Not because every decision produces perfect results, but because you begin trusting your ability to think carefully, adapt when necessary, and learn from every outcome. You stop fearing mistakes because you know that every experience contains information that will strengthen your future judgment. Eventually, success becomes less mysterious. It is no longer something you hope for or wait to receive. It becomes the natural consequence of repeatedly making thoughtful choices while remaining willing to learn, adjust, and continue moving forward. Remember, your life is not built only by the opportunities you receive. It is built by the decisions you make when those opportunities appear. So strengthen your thinking before chasing bigger results. Improve your judgment before demanding greater rewards. Build the habit of making decisions that reflect your values, your purpose, and your long-term vision. Because when your decisions become stronger, your future quietly begins changing long before anyone else can see it. And over time, those invisible choices become visible victories that no moment of luck could ever replace. Chapter 6. Build discipline that works every day. Motivation is exciting, but it is unreliable. It arrives without warning and disappears just as quickly. On some mornings, you feel energized and ready to conquer the world. On others, even the smallest task feels like a burden. If your progress depends entirely on how inspired you feel, your future will always be controlled by emotions that refuse to stay the same. Discipline is different. It does not ask whether you feel ready. It asks whether you are committed. It does not promise excitement. It promises consistency. And while consistency may seem ordinary in the moment, it produces extraordinary results over time. The strongest minds are not built during moments of intense inspiration. They are built through repeated actions that are often quiet, unnoticed, and even boring. Yet these simple actions carry tremendous power because they gradually reshape who you become. Imagine a river flowing across solid rock. It does not carve deep valleys through one dramatic surge. It changes the landscape through steady movement, day after day, year after year. The same principle applies to your habits. Small actions, repeated consistently, eventually transform your character in ways that sudden bursts of effort never can. Many people misunderstand discipline because they associate it with punishment or restriction. They imagine discipline as forcing themselves to suffer. In reality, discipline is a form of self-respect. It is the decision to honor your future, even when your present emotions suggest taking the easier path. Every disciplined action sends a message to your mind. When you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce trust in your own character. When you complete a difficult task instead of postponing it, you strengthen reliability. When you choose long-term growth over short-term comfort, you remind yourself that your future matters more than your temporary mood. These messages accumulate. Over time, they shape your identity far more than occasional moments of success. One reason discipline feels difficult is because the rewards are delayed while the effort is immediate. The discomfort of waking up early is felt today. The benefits may not appear for months. The challenge of learning a new skill is experienced now. The opportunities created by that skill may arrive years later. This gap between effort and reward discourages many people. They mistake invisible progress for no progress at all. Yet some of the most important transformations happen beneath the surface, long before they become visible. Just as roots grow underground before a tree reaches upward, disciplined habits establish an unseen foundation before external success appears. Trusting this invisible process requires patience. Every meaningful achievement has a season where nothing seems to change. Continue anyway. Another misunderstanding about discipline is the belief that it requires perfection. It does not. Perfection creates pressure because it leaves no room for mistakes. Discipline creates resilience because it allows you to recover quickly. Missing one workout does not destroy your health. Skipping one study session does not erase your knowledge. Having one unproductive day does not define your work ethic. The real danger begins when one mistake becomes an excuse to abandon the entire journey. Disciplined people understand the value of returning. They do not waste energy criticizing themselves for temporary setbacks. Instead, they calmly resume the habits that move them forward. Consistency is not about never falling behind. It is about refusing to stay behind. There is another powerful shift that strengthens daily discipline. Stop asking yourself, "Do I feel like doing this?" Instead, ask, "What kind of person am I becoming by doing this?" That question changes everything. Every action becomes connected to identity instead of emotion. Reading strengthens the identity of a lifelong learner. Keeping your word strengthens the identity of a trustworthy person. Practicing patience strengthens the identity of someone who remains composed under pressure. The action may last only minutes, but the identity it reinforces can last a lifetime. Your daily routines are more than a schedule. They are votes for the person you are becoming. Every repeated choice teaches your mind what to expect from you. If you repeatedly quit when things become difficult, your mind begins expecting surrender. If you repeatedly continue despite discomfort, your mind begins expecting perseverance. Eventually, persistence stops feeling like effort. It becomes part of your nature. Do not underestimate the quiet strength of ordinary days. Great lives are rarely built through constant dramatic breakthroughs. They are built through ordinary mornings when no one is watching, ordinary afternoons when distractions appear, and ordinary evenings when you choose progress over excuses. These moments may seem insignificant on their own, but together they become the foundation of remarkable achievements. Remember, success does not ask whether you were motivated every day. It asks whether you kept moving when motivation disappeared. Build habits that remain steady regardless of your emotions. Honor the commitments you make to yourself. Let discipline become less about forcing action and more about expressing the person you choose to be, because the mind that learns to show up consistently gains a quiet advantage that circumstances cannot easily take away. And in the end, that quiet advantage becomes an extraordinary life. Chapter 7. Master your attention in a distracted world. Your life moves in the direction of your attention. Where your attention goes, your thoughts follow. Where your thoughts remain, your actions eventually begin. And where your actions are repeated, your future quietly takes shape. This is why attention is far more than a mental skill. It is the steering wheel of your life. Yet we live in an age where countless forces compete for that steering wheel. Every notification, headline, advertisement, opinion, and endless stream of information is designed to capture your focus. Most distractions do not ask for permission. They simply appear, pulling your mind from one thought to another until hours disappear without meaningful progress. The greatest danger is not that distractions exist. The greatest danger is becoming so accustomed to them that you no longer notice how much of your life they quietly consume. A distracted mind rarely reaches its full potential, not because it lacks intelligence, but because its energy is constantly divided. Imagine sunlight spreading across an open field. It provides warmth, but it changes very little. Now imagine that same light concentrated through a magnifying lens. Suddenly, it has the power to ignite a flame. Your attention works the same way. Scattered attention creates activity. Focused attention creates transformation. Many people mistake being busy for being productive. They fill every hour with movement, conversations, meetings, messages, and endless tasks. At the end of the day, they feel exhausted, yet they struggle to identify what truly moved their lives forward. Movement is not always progress. Sometimes it is simply motion without direction. A trained mind learns to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. Urgent tasks demand immediate attention. Important tasks create lasting value. The difference matters. Answering another message may feel productive, but developing a valuable skill shapes your future. Checking updates every few minutes may satisfy curiosity, but completing meaningful work builds confidence and opportunity. Every day, your attention makes these choices. The quality of your future depends on how often you choose importance over urgency. There is another invisible challenge. Distraction is not always external. Sometimes the loudest interruptions come from within. Unfinished worries, imagined conversations, regret about yesterday, anxiety about tomorrow. These mental loops quietly consume energy that could be invested in the present moment. The mind has a tendency to wander toward uncertainty because it believes constant thinking creates control. In reality, excessive thinking often creates confusion rather than clarity. The solution is not to eliminate every wandering thought. The solution is learning how to return. Whenever your attention drifts, gently bring it back. Back to the conversation, back to the page, back to the task, back to this moment. Every return strengthens your ability to focus. Attention is like a muscle. It develops through repeated practice, not occasional effort. Another habit that protects your focus is learning to create intentional boundaries. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every opportunity deserves your time. One of the most powerful words in personal growth is a respectful no. Every unnecessary commitment takes attention away from something that truly matters. Every unnecessary distraction quietly delays meaningful progress. Protecting your attention is not selfish. It is responsible, because your greatest goals require uninterrupted periods of deep thinking, patient learning, and consistent action. These qualities cannot flourish in a constantly interrupted mind. There is also value in creating moments of deliberate silence. The modern world rewards constant stimulation, yet the mind often discovers its clearest insights during quiet reflection. When you step away from endless noise, your thinking becomes more organized, problems become easier to understand, decisions become more thoughtful. Creativity begins connecting ideas that constant distraction never allowed you to notice. Silence is not empty. It is where understanding often begins. As you strengthen your attention, something remarkable happens. You become less reactive. You stop chasing every new idea. You stop comparing your progress with everyone else's. You become more intentional because your mind is no longer pulled in every direction at once. Your energy begins serving your purpose instead of serving every interruption. Remember that every day you are making an investment. You are investing your time, your thoughts, and your attention somewhere. Ask yourself whether those investments are creating the future you truly want. Because attention is one of the few resources that can never be recovered once it has been spent. Spend it wisely, guard it carefully, direct it intentionally. The strongest minds are not those that think about everything. They are the ones that know exactly what deserves their focus and have the discipline to let everything else pass by. Master your attention, and you will begin mastering your life, one deliberate moment at a time. Or Chapter 8. Transform fear into forward momentum. Fear has protected humanity for thousands of years. It warns us of genuine danger, encourages caution, and helps us survive situations that require immediate attention. But in modern life, fear often appears long before any real danger exists. It no longer warns us about wild animals or approaching storms. Instead, it whispers about failure, rejection, uncertainty, and the possibility of making the wrong decision. Left unchallenged, that whisper slowly becomes a wall. Many people believe courage means feeling no fear at all. They imagine confident people waking each morning free from doubt, hesitation, or anxiety. The truth is far more encouraging. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else deserves greater influence over your actions than fear does. That distinction changes everything. Fear speaks in predictions. It tells you what might happen. It imagines conversations that have not occurred, failures that have not happened, and outcomes that have not been decided. The mind begins treating these imagined possibilities as if they were facts, and before long, opportunities are abandoned without ever being explored. The future is surrendered to assumptions. A trained mind refuses to confuse possibility with certainty. Instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" it asks, "What if I am more capable than I currently believe?" Both questions imagine the future. Only one creates the strength to move toward it. One of the greatest misconceptions about fear is believing it disappears before action begins. In reality, fear usually weakens because of action, not before it. Waiting until you feel completely confident often becomes a lifelong delay because confidence is rarely the starting point. It is the reward for repeatedly doing difficult things despite uncertainty. Think about the first time you learned any meaningful skill. Whether it was speaking in public, driving a car, beginning a new job, or learning a new language, discomfort was almost certainly part of the experience. The task felt unfamiliar because your mind had not yet built a pattern for it. With repetition, something remarkable happened. What once demanded tremendous mental effort gradually became natural. The challenge did not shrink. Your capacity expanded. This is how fear loses its authority, not through avoidance, but through familiarity. Every step you take toward discomfort teaches your mind an important lesson. Uncertainty is survivable. The more evidence you collect, the less convincing fear becomes. Another reason fear feels overwhelming is because it often magnifies distant possibilities while ignoring present reality. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain. Looking at the summit all at once can feel exhausting. Your mind immediately calculates the distance, the effort, and every possible difficulty ahead. But mountains are not climbed by reaching the summit in a single leap. They are climbed one deliberate step at a time. Life follows the same principle. When fear overwhelms you, bring your attention back to the next meaningful action. Make the phone call, write the first page, attend the meeting, take the first lesson, start the conversation. Progress begins where overthinking ends. Fear also thrives in isolation. When challenges remain locked inside your thoughts, they often become larger than they truly are. The mind has a tendency to repeat unresolved worries until they appear far more intimidating than reality. Bringing those thoughts into the open through reflection, conversation, or writing often reveals that the obstacle is smaller and more manageable than you first believed. Clarity reduces fear because uncertainty loses much of its power once it is examined honestly. There is another truth worth remembering. Fear is often a sign that something matters. You feel nervous before an important opportunity because it carries meaning. You hesitate before making a significant change because growth always asks you to leave something familiar behind. In this sense, fear is not always an enemy. Sometimes it is simply standing at the doorway of your next level of development. The question is whether you allow it to guard that doorway forever. Strong minds develop an unusual relationship with discomfort. They stop interpreting it as a signal to retreat. Instead, they begin asking, what skill is this moment inviting me to strengthen? Patience, confidence, communication, leadership, resilience. Every challenge is training something. When you focus on growth instead of avoidance, fear gradually transforms from a barrier into a guide. It begins pointing toward the places where your greatest development is waiting. Remember, every meaningful chapter of your life will require you to walk into situations where certainty is impossible. You will never possess every answer before taking the first step. But you do not need complete certainty to begin. You need willingness, the willingness to learn, the willingness to adapt, the willingness to keep moving when the outcome remains unknown. Because every courageous action rewrites the story your mind tells about what you are capable of becoming. And one day, you will look back and realize that the moments you feared the most became the moments that revealed the strongest version of yourself. Fear may always knock at the door, but it does not have to decide whether you move forward. Chapter 9. Develop an adaptive mindset. The world does not stand still. Technology evolves, industries change, relationships shift, unexpected opportunities appear, and carefully designed plans sometimes fall apart overnight. Change is not an occasional visitor in life, it is its constant companion. The question is not whether change will arrive. The question is whether your mind is prepared to move with it. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy resisting what they cannot prevent. They wish circumstances would return to the way they once were. They cling to familiar routines, familiar ideas, and familiar identities because familiarity feels safe. Yet what once protected your growth can eventually become the very thing that limits it. The strongest minds are not those that resist change. They are the ones that learn from it. An adaptive mindset begins with a simple realization. Every situation contains information. Even when events unfold differently than expected, there is always something valuable to observe, understand, and apply. Instead of asking, why didn't this go according to plan, an adaptive thinker asks, what does this new reality require from me? That single question changes frustration into curiosity. Imagine a sailor crossing the ocean. The sailor cannot control the direction of the wind. Fighting the wind would waste precious energy and accomplish nothing. Instead, the sailor adjusts the sails, changes the angle, and continues moving toward the destination by working with conditions rather than against them. Life demands the same skill. You cannot control every circumstance, but you can continually adjust your thinking, your strategy, and your actions. Adaptability is not abandoning your goals. It is changing your approach while remaining committed to your purpose. Many people confuse flexibility with weakness. They assume changing direction means admitting failure. In reality, the opposite is often true. Refusing to adjust despite clear evidence can become one of the most expensive mistakes a person makes. Wisdom knows when persistence is required. Wisdom also knows when a different method is necessary. There is a powerful distinction between giving up and growing wiser. Giving up means abandoning the destination. Adapting means discovering a better route. Throughout history, remarkable achievements have rarely followed perfect plans. Innovations emerged because people responded creatively to unexpected problems. Great leaders succeeded because they adjusted to changing circumstances instead of insisting that reality matched their expectations. Progress belongs to those who are willing to learn faster than circumstances change. This requires intellectual humility. A rigid mind believes it already has every answer. An adaptive mind remains curious. It listens more carefully. It asks better questions. It welcomes new evidence, even when that evidence challenges old assumptions. Growth becomes possible the moment your identity is no longer attached to always being right. Instead of defending your opinions, begin refining them. Instead of protecting your comfort, begin expanding your understanding. Learning becomes much easier when proving yourself is no longer your highest priority. Another essential part of adaptability is emotional flexibility. Unexpected setbacks often create disappointment, frustration, or uncertainty. These emotions are natural, but they become dangerous when they convince you that every change is a catastrophe. Pause before assigning meaning to difficult moments. Not every closed door is a loss. Sometimes it is a redirection. Not every delay is failure. Sometimes it is preparation. Not every unexpected turn is a setback. Sometimes it is revealing a path you would never have considered otherwise. The meaning of an event often changes with time. What appears frustrating today may become one of the most valuable experiences of your life years from now. That is why adaptive thinkers avoid making permanent conclusions during temporary uncertainty. They continue gathering information. They continue learning. They continue adjusting. This steady willingness to evolve becomes one of their greatest strengths. There is another habit that strengthens adaptability. Treat every experience as practice rather than a final examination. When every challenge feels like a test you must pass perfectly, fear begins controlling your decisions. But when every challenge becomes an opportunity to practice better thinking, better communication, better leadership, or better judgment, mistakes lose much of their power. They become lessons instead of labels. This mindset creates resilience because improvement becomes more important than perfection. Every day offers another opportunity to refine your thinking, to improve your habits, to strengthen your character, to become more capable than you were yesterday. That journey never truly ends. The people who remain successful over long periods are rarely the ones with the greatest natural advantages. They are the ones who continue adapting while others remain trapped by outdated beliefs and familiar routines. Remember, life does not reward those who simply hold on to the past. It rewards those who are willing to grow with the future. So keep your purpose steady, but keep your methods flexible. Remain confident enough to move forward and humble enough to keep learning, because an adaptive mind is never defeated by change. It uses change as the very force that carries it toward greater wisdom, greater strength, and greater possibility. Chapter 10. Create confidence through repeated action. Confidence is often misunderstood. Many people believe it is something you must discover before taking action, as though it exists somewhere outside of you, waiting for the right moment to appear. They postpone important conversations, delay meaningful goals, and avoid difficult opportunities because they are waiting to feel confident. The problem is that confidence rarely arrives first. More often, it arrives last. It is not the cause of consistent action, it is the result of it. Think about a bridge built across a wide river. No one begins by trusting the bridge completely. Trust grows because the bridge continues to hold its weight, one crossing after another. Confidence develops in much the same way. You trust yourself because you repeatedly prove to yourself that you can move forward, even when the outcome is uncertain. Every meaningful action becomes evidence. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes proof. Every challenge you face without retreat becomes another reason to believe in your own ability. Confidence is not built through imagination alone. It is built through accumulated experience. Unfortunately, many people unknowingly weaken their confidence every day. They set goals they never pursue. They make commitments they repeatedly break. They promise themselves they will start tomorrow, then postpone again. Over time, the mind notices this pattern. Eventually, it stops believing the promises you make. The greatest cost is not the unfinished task. The greatest cost is the quiet loss of trust in yourself. Self-confidence and self-trust are deeply connected. Every time your actions match your intentions, that trust becomes stronger. Every time they drift apart, doubt quietly grows. This is why small victories matter far more than they appear. Completing one meaningful task when you said you would. Following through on a daily habit. Finishing what you started. Speaking honestly when remaining silent would have been easier. These moments seem ordinary, but they send a powerful message to your mind. I can depend on myself. There are few beliefs more valuable than that. Another misunderstanding about confidence is believing that it requires perfection. Perfection creates fear because every mistake feels like failure. Real confidence grows differently. It expects mistakes. It welcomes correction. It understands that improvement is impossible without imperfect attempts. Imagine a musician learning a new instrument. The first notes are uncertain. The rhythm feels awkward. Progress is slow. If every mistake were treated as proof of inability, the musician would never continue long enough to develop mastery. Growth demands repetition, not flawless repetition, purposeful repetition. Every attempt teaches the mind something new. Every adjustment improves future performance. Confidence grows because competence grows. This is why action always carries more value than endless preparation. Preparation has its place, but there comes a moment when learning must become doing. Reading about leadership is valuable. Leading people teaches leadership. Studying communication is useful. Having difficult conversations develops communication. Planning success is important. Taking action creates it. Knowledge becomes transformation only when it enters your behavior. There is another habit that quietly strengthens confidence. Measure yourself against your previous self instead of comparing yourself with everyone else. Comparison creates endless dissatisfaction because there will always be someone further ahead. Growth creates momentum because your only competition becomes the person you were yesterday. Ask yourself simple questions. Am I more patient than I was last month? Do I recover from setbacks more quickly? Am I making wiser decisions? Am I keeping more promises to myself? These questions focus your attention on genuine progress instead of external approval. The strongest confidence is internal. It does not depend on applause, recognition, or constant encouragement. It grows from the quiet knowledge that you are becoming someone stronger through consistent effort. Confidence also requires accepting uncertainty. No one begins a worthwhile journey with complete assurance. Every entrepreneur starts without guarantees. Every athlete competes without certainty. Every inventor creates without knowing exactly how the world will respond. Waiting for certainty often becomes another form of procrastination. Action creates clarity. Movement reveals opportunities that hesitation never can. The road becomes clearer after you begin walking. Perhaps the most important lesson is this: confidence is not a destination you eventually reach. It is a relationship you build with yourself. Each decision either strengthens or weakens that relationship. Each habit either reinforces trust or creates doubt. Each challenge either expands your belief in your own capabilities or becomes another opportunity you allowed fear to steal. Choose the first path. Take the step you have been delaying. Finish the work you have been avoiding. Keep the promise you made to yourself. Do it again tomorrow and the day after that. Not because every day will feel easy, but because every repeated action becomes another brick in the foundation of an unshakable mind. One day, people will look at your confidence and assume you were simply born with it. They will never see the countless ordinary moments when you chose action over excuses, progress over perfection, and commitment over comfort. But you will, because that is where real confidence is created. Not in extraordinary moments, but in the quiet discipline of showing up again and again until belief in yourself becomes stronger than any doubt that once held you back. Chapter 11. Convert pressure into peak performance. Pressure changes everything, but not in the way most people think. It does not automatically make you stronger or weaker. It simply amplifies whatever habits already exist within you. If your mind has been trained to panic, pressure will magnify panic. If your mind has been trained to think clearly, pressure will sharpen clarity. The challenge itself is not the deciding factor. Your preparation is. This is why the highest performers in every field spend far more time preparing than worrying. They understand that confidence under pressure is rarely created in the moment. It is built long before the moment arrives. Consider an experienced pilot flying through unexpected turbulence. The passengers may become anxious because they cannot predict what will happen next. The pilot, however, has practiced responding to difficult conditions countless times. The turbulence is real, but panic serves no purpose. Training takes control where fear once would have. Life works in much the same way. You cannot eliminate every unexpected event, but you can prepare your mind to meet uncertainty with steadiness instead of chaos. One of the greatest mistakes people make under pressure is allowing urgency to replace clear thinking. When emotions rise, the mind begins demanding immediate answers. It wants instant certainty, instant relief, and instant solutions. In that state, even intelligent people make careless decisions because they confuse speed with effectiveness. Strong minds understand something different. The first response is not always the best response. Sometimes the most powerful action is to pause. A brief moment of stillness can prevent hours, days, or even years of unnecessary consequences. A calm breath before speaking. A thoughtful pause before replying to criticism. A few minutes of reflection before making an important decision. These moments may appear insignificant, but they create the space where wisdom has an opportunity to lead. Pressure also has a remarkable ability to expose priorities. When everything feels urgent, what truly matters becomes difficult to recognize. Your attention scatters across dozens of concerns until your energy is consumed by problems that may not deserve it. Instead of asking, "How do I solve everything?" ask a more productive question. What matters most right now? This question immediately narrows your focus. A crisis often becomes manageable the moment you stop trying to carry every burden at once. Great leaders, skilled athletes, emergency responders, and successful entrepreneurs all rely on this principle. They simplify complexity by concentrating on the next meaningful action rather than becoming overwhelmed by the entire situation. Pressure loses much of its power when your attention becomes disciplined. There is another important shift that transforms performance. Stop viewing pressure as proof that you are unprepared. Often, pressure is evidence that you are doing something meaningful. Important conversations create pressure. Important opportunities create pressure. Important responsibilities create pressure. If your goals never challenge you, they will never change you. Instead of asking why life feels demanding, begin asking whether you are growing into responsibilities that once seemed impossible. This perspective transforms stress into purpose. You stop seeing difficult moments as interruptions and begin recognizing them as invitations to expand your capacity. Another overlooked skill is recovery. Even the strongest minds cannot remain at maximum intensity forever. Just as muscles require rest after physical effort, the mind requires moments of renewal after sustained concentration and emotional strain. Recovery is not weakness, it is preparation, reflection, meaningful rest, quiet thinking, time in nature, honest conversations, and moments of gratitude restore mental energy. They sharpen your judgment and prevent exhaustion from becoming your normal state. Peak performance depends as much on recovery as it does on effort. Ignoring this truth often leads people to confuse constant busyness with genuine effectiveness. Finally, remember that pressure is temporary, but character is lasting. When difficult moments pass, people rarely remember every detail of the challenge itself. They remember how they responded. They remember whether they remained honest when shortcuts were available. They remember whether they stayed composed when emotions were high. They remember whether they protected their values when circumstances tempted them to abandon them. Pressure reveals character because it removes the comfort of ideal conditions. It asks whether your principles remain strong when life becomes uncertain. Every challenge gives you an opportunity to answer that question. Meet pressure with preparation instead of panic. Replace haste with thoughtful action. Focus on what truly matters instead of everything demanding your attention. Care for your mind so it remains strong enough for tomorrow's responsibilities, because the goal is not to live a life without pressure. The goal is to become the kind of person who performs with wisdom, steadiness, and purpose whenever pressure arrives. When that transformation takes place, pressure no longer becomes something to fear. It becomes the stage where your strongest self is finally revealed. Chapter 12. Lead your life with purpose and direction. A ship without a destination is never truly lost because it was never headed anywhere to begin with. Many people move through life in the same way. They stay busy, meet deadlines, solve immediate problems, and fill their calendars with activity. Yet they rarely stop to ask a more important question. What direction is all of this movement creating? Motion alone does not guarantee progress. Without purpose, even relentless effort can lead to an empty destination. Purpose is not simply a dream or an ambitious goal. It is the reason behind your decisions. It is the invisible force that gives meaning to discipline, patience, and sacrifice. When your purpose is clear, difficult days no longer feel meaningless because every challenge becomes part of something larger than the discomfort of the present moment. Many people spend years searching for purpose as though it were a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. In reality, purpose is often built rather than found. It grows through the choices you repeatedly make, the values you refuse to compromise, and the contribution you decide to offer the world. Purpose begins with one simple question. What kind of person do I want to become? Notice that this question focuses on identity rather than achievement. Achievements can be taken away, titles can change, wealth can rise and fall, circumstances can shift without warning, but character travels with you wherever you go. When your life is guided by character instead of temporary success, your direction remains steady even when the road changes. The strongest leaders understand this principle. They do not allow every obstacle to redefine their mission. They adapt their methods while remaining loyal to their values. Their decisions are not controlled by convenience or popularity. They are guided by principles that remain constant regardless of the situation. You can develop the same stability. Start by identifying the values that deserve authority over your life. Perhaps it is integrity, perhaps it is courage, perhaps it is curiosity, responsibility, kindness, discipline, or perseverance. These values become your internal compass. When difficult decisions arise, you no longer ask only, what is easiest? Instead, you ask, what choice reflects the person I am committed to becoming? That single shift simplifies many of life's most difficult decisions. Purpose also changes the way you experience setbacks. Without purpose, obstacles feel like evidence that you should quit. With purpose, obstacles become part of the journey. Imagine an architect designing a great building. During construction, there will be delays, unexpected problems, and countless adjustments. Yet none of those challenges change the vision of the finished structure. Every correction simply brings the building closer to its intended design. Your life deserves the same perspective. Do not become so focused on today's inconvenience that you lose sight of tomorrow's vision. Another powerful habit is learning to distinguish between goals and direction. Goals are milestones. Direction is a way of living. You may reach a goal and immediately create another one. Purpose, however, continues guiding your life long after individual goals have been completed. A person whose direction is lifelong learning never stops growing after finishing one course. A person whose direction is serving others continues making a difference beyond any single achievement. A person whose direction is becoming wiser treats every experience as another opportunity to improve. Direction creates consistency because it extends beyond temporary victories. Purpose also protects you from unnecessary comparison. When you know where you are going, you spend less time worrying about the pace of someone else's journey. You recognize that every life follows a different path, shaped by different experiences, responsibilities, and opportunities. Comparison steals attention from your own mission. Purpose returns it. Each morning becomes less about competing with others and more about becoming a little stronger than you were yesterday. Perhaps the greatest gift of purpose is resilience. When your reasons are powerful, your determination becomes stronger. Difficult days no longer have the authority to define your future because your vision extends beyond temporary discomfort. You continue moving, not because every step is easy, but because every step carries meaning. Take time to reflect on the life you are building, not the image you want others to see, not the expectations others have placed upon you. The life that aligns with your deepest values and your highest principles. Let those principles shape your decisions. Let those decisions shape your habits. Let those habits shape your character. Because purpose is not something you occasionally visit. It is the direction you choose every single day. And when your direction is guided by purpose instead of impulse, every challenge becomes another opportunity to live with greater intention, stronger character, and unwavering resolve. Chapter 13. Create the habits of an impossible-to-defeat mind. Every remarkable life is built twice. The first construction happens where no one can see it, in the quiet routines, repeated decisions, and invisible habits that shape the way a person thinks and acts. The second construction appears in the visible world through achievements, relationships, leadership, and lasting impact. Most people admire the second while overlooking the first. Yet the visible life can never become stronger than the invisible foundation beneath it. This is why habits matter so deeply. They are not simply actions you repeat. They are instructions you give your mind about who you are becoming. Every repeated behavior leaves an imprint. When you choose discipline over convenience, your mind learns reliability. When you choose patience instead of impulsiveness, your mind learns emotional balance. When you choose learning instead of excuses, your mind begins expecting growth rather than comfort. These choices may seem ordinary, but they quietly redefine your identity. The strongest habits are not dramatic. They are dependable. A person who spends 10 focused minutes reflecting on the day develops more self-awareness than someone who waits for occasional moments of inspiration. A person who consistently honors small commitments builds more trust in themselves than someone who constantly makes ambitious promises but rarely follows through. Great character grows through ordinary consistency. One useful way to think about habits is to imagine them as votes. Every action casts a vote for the person you are becoming. Reading a few pages casts a vote for becoming wiser. Practicing self-control casts a vote for becoming emotionally resilient. Finishing difficult work casts a vote for becoming dependable. One vote rarely decides the outcome. Thousands of votes eventually do. This perspective removes unnecessary pressure. You do not need every day to be perfect. You simply need today's actions to support tomorrow's identity. Another essential habit is reflection. Many people experience life without ever truly learning from it. They repeat the same mistakes because they move so quickly from one challenge to another that they never pause to ask what each experience was trying to teach. Growth accelerates when experience is combined with reflection. At the end of each day, ask yourself simple questions. What challenged me today? How did I respond? What decision made me stronger? What can I improve tomorrow? These questions gradually sharpen your awareness and prevent your days from blending into one another without meaningful progress. Equally important is the habit of protecting your environment. Your surroundings quietly influence your thinking. The people you spend time with shape your standards. The information you consume shapes your perspective. The conversations you participate in shape your beliefs. Your environment either reinforces the person you want to become or pulls you toward habits that weaken your progress. Choose influences that encourage responsibility instead of excuses, curiosity instead of complacency, and action instead of endless complaint. Another powerful habit is keeping promises to yourself. When you tell yourself you will do something, follow through whenever possible. It does not matter whether the commitment is large or small. The mind notices consistency. Every promise kept strengthens self-respect. Every promise repeatedly broken weakens self-belief. Your relationship with yourself is built in exactly the same way as any other relationship. Trust grows through reliability. There is also tremendous value in practicing recovery with intention. An impossible-to-defeat mind is not one that never becomes tired. It is one that knows how to recover wisely. Rest is not the opposite of discipline. Rest is part of discipline. Moments of quiet thinking, meaningful conversations, physical movement, gratitude, and time away from constant stimulation allow the mind to renew its clarity. A rested mind makes better decisions than an exhausted one. Finally, remember that habits are not chains. They are tools. You are never trapped by yesterday's routines. If a habit no longer serves your future, you have the power to replace it with one that does. Transformation does not require becoming a different person overnight. It requires becoming slightly better, slightly wiser, and slightly more intentional each day. Those small improvements compound. Weeks become months. Months become years. One day, people notice your resilience, your composure, your discipline, and your confidence. They assume these qualities appeared naturally. What they cannot see are the thousands of quiet decisions that shaped them. The early mornings, the difficult choices, the repeated efforts, the moments when no applause was waiting. That is where an impossible-to-defeat mind is truly created. Not through extraordinary talent or perfect circumstances, but through ordinary habits practiced with extraordinary consistency. Guard those habits carefully, refine them patiently, live them faithfully, because when your daily actions consistently strengthen your character, you no longer depend on luck, temporary motivation, or favorable conditions. You become someone whose greatest advantage is not found in the world around you, but in the disciplined mind you have built within yourself. Chapter 14. Live beyond every challenge. Every challenge eventually comes to an end. The difficult conversation is finished, the obstacle is overcome, the uncertainty fades, the fear that once felt overwhelming slowly becomes a distant memory. Yet when the challenge is over, something remains. It is not the event itself, but the person you became while moving through it. That is the true reward of every struggle. Many people spend their lives hoping to reach a point where problems no longer exist. They imagine success as a destination free from setbacks, pressure, disappointment, or unexpected change. But life has never worked that way. Every new chapter introduces a different set of responsibilities, decisions, and tests. The challenges change because you change. The goal, then, is not to eliminate adversity. The goal is to become someone who is prepared for it. Throughout this journey, you have explored a simple but powerful truth. Your greatest advantage is not found in your circumstances. It is found in your response to them. Every chapter has pointed toward the same principle from a different direction. Self-awareness gives you control over your thoughts. Discipline gives you consistency. Focus gives you clarity. Adaptability gives you resilience. Purpose gives you direction. Together, these qualities form a mindset that remains steady even when life becomes unpredictable. This mindset is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you maintain through daily choices. Think of it as tending a garden. You cannot prepare the soil once and expect it to flourish forever. It must be cared for continually. Weeds must be removed. New seeds must be planted. Growth requires attention in every season. Your mind works the same way. Every day presents a choice. Will you strengthen your habits or neglect them? Will you react automatically or respond intentionally? Will you remain curious or become trapped by certainty? Will you move toward growth or retreat into comfort? These decisions may appear small, but they quietly shape the person you become. One of the greatest misconceptions about mental strength is believing it means becoming emotionally unaffected. It does not. You will still experience disappointment. You will still face uncertainty. You will still have moments of doubt. Mental strength is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to remain guided by your principles, even when emotions become intense. A calm mind does not deny reality. It faces reality without surrendering to it. There will also be moments when you fall short of your own expectations. You will make mistakes. You will lose opportunities. You will occasionally return to old habits. Do not mistake these moments for failure. Growth has never followed a perfect path. What matters is your willingness to return. Return to your discipline. Return to your purpose. Return to the habits that strengthen your character. Every return makes you more resilient than before. As you continue your journey, remember that your influence extends beyond yourself. The way you respond to difficulty shapes the people around you. Your family notices your patience. Your friends notice your integrity. Your colleagues notice your reliability. Children notice your example. Leadership begins long before anyone gives you a title. People are inspired less by what you say than by how consistently you live your values when life becomes difficult. Your greatest lesson may become someone else's greatest encouragement. There is another truth worth carrying forward. Do not define success only by what you accumulate. Measure it by who you become. Knowledge matters because it changes your thinking. Discipline matters because it strengthens your character. Kindness matters because it deepens your relationships. Courage matters because it expands your possibilities. A meaningful life is built from qualities that cannot be measured by numbers alone. When your character grows, success becomes more than an achievement. It becomes an expression of who you are. One day, you will look back at the challenges that once seemed impossible. Some of them will make you smile. Others will remind you how much strength you discovered when you had no choice but to keep moving. You will realize that your greatest victories were never over other people or difficult circumstances. They were over hesitation, over self-doubt, over fear, over the belief that you were less capable than you truly were. That is what it means to become impossible to defeat. Not that life stops testing you, not that every dream unfolds exactly as planned, not that every battle ends in immediate victory. It means that no setback can permanently stop a person who refuses to stop growing. Carry this mindset into every conversation, every opportunity, every disappointment, and every new beginning. Continue training your mind with intention, leading your life with purpose, and acting with quiet discipline even when no one is watching. Because the strongest people are not remembered for living easy lives. They are remembered for meeting life's greatest challenges with unwavering character, thoughtful action, and a spirit that refused to be broken. And when you become that person, you will discover that the greatest victory was never defeating the challenge. It was becoming someone strong enough to rise beyond every challenge that life placed before you. Conclusion: every meaningful journey leaves you with a choice. You can close this audiobook, admire its ideas, and return to familiar habits. Or you can treat these chapters as the beginning of a new way of thinking, one that quietly transforms the decisions you make, the challenges you face, and the person you become over the years ahead. Knowledge alone has never changed a life. Applied knowledge has. Throughout this audiobook, you have explored a simple yet powerful principle. The mind is not a fixed gift that determines your future. It is a living system that grows stronger through intentional practice. Every disciplined decision, every courageous action, every thoughtful response, and every lesson learned from adversity reshapes the way you meet the world. Remember that true strength is rarely loud. It is found in the person who stays calm when others panic, who continues moving when progress feels slow, who chooses wisdom over impulse, and who remains faithful to their values even when no one is watching. These moments may never receive applause, but they become the invisible foundation of an extraordinary life. As you move forward, stop waiting for perfect conditions before taking action. Life will never remove every uncertainty from your path. There will always be unexpected obstacles, difficult decisions, and moments that test your patience and resolve. Instead of asking for an easier journey, continue becoming a stronger traveler. The quality of your future depends far more on the quality of your mindset than on the comfort of your circumstances. Never forget that growth is a lifelong practice, not a final destination. There is always another lesson to learn, another habit to strengthen, another fear to overcome, and another opportunity to become wiser than you were yesterday. Progress is measured not by dramatic breakthroughs alone, but by the quiet commitment to improve a little every single day. Years from now, people may notice your confidence, your resilience, and your ability to remain steady when life becomes uncertain. They may assume these qualities appeared naturally. Only you will know the truth. You will remember the ordinary mornings when you chose discipline over excuses, the difficult conversations that strengthened your character, the setbacks that taught you resilience, and the countless moments when you refused to surrender your future to temporary doubt. So let this not be the end of your journey, but the beginning of a lifelong practice. Protect your attention, strengthen your discipline, refine your thinking, adapt without losing your purpose, lead with integrity, face fear with action, meet pressure with clarity, and treat every challenge as another opportunity to build the person you are capable of becoming. Because the greatest victory is not reaching a moment where life stops testing you. The greatest victory is becoming the kind of person who continues to grow through every test, rises after every setback, and moves forward with purpose no matter what lies ahead. Train your mind every day, and one day you will discover that the challenges which once seemed impossible have become the very experiences that revealed your strongest, wisest, and most resilient self. That is the lasting reward of a disciplined mind, and it is a reward that no obstacle can ever take away.